Hey guys, welcome back to the New Now. I'm the Archivist, and today we're going to talk about X-Men. Actually, we're going to be talking a lot about X-Men, as for the next 3 videos I'm at least planning on doing, we're going to be talking about X-Men, so that's probably just going to be the rest of the year. But that's okay, we like X-Men. Or at least, I do. While I didn't read the comics up until about my teenage years, I grew up with X-Men all over the place. I remember catching snippets of the show, and one of my good friends was a huge fan of the X-Men books when we were growing up, and X-Men 2 was my teacher's movie of choice anytime I had German class and we weren't about to do any work, so I saw it a lot. Needless to say, I was always intrigued, and from what I saw, I really enjoyed. So when I got into comics, it was fresh after the event AVX, which was the Avengers versus the X-Men, and even though I had no idea what was going on, I still loved it. Actually, one of my prized possessions in my comic collection is my copy of AVX Babies, which I think is absolutely hilarious and adorable. When I got started with reading comic books, X-Men was kind of on my short list. And frankly, it paid off. This is a series that I have loved in multiple incarnations, and no matter how confusing it gets, I'm usually around long for the ride. So let's start with All New X-Men. All New X-Men was a run that started in 2012 and ended in 2015. This is technically All New X-Men Volume 4 for any of you hardcore All New X-Men people out there. It was written by Brian Michael Bendis with Stuart Immonen, and frankly, whenever Brian Michael Bendis is around writing a team book, it's usually a pretty good time. This title is very unique, as it's one of those times where X-Men was kind of at a crossroads. They just had a major event, and there had been a lot of fallout. So, what do? Time travel. So, the basic premise of the story is that Dr. Henry McCoy, aka Beast, brings back the old X-Men from the nondescript past. We all know it's the 60s, but, time passes. To see what has become of the X-Men community, especially in the wake of AVX, where Scott Summers, this aka Cyclops, has become a radical and is leading his own mutant revolution. Beast is hoping to reunite the X-Men under one banner for the good of mutant kind, but this seems to be a case of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Bringing the young, vulnerable X-Men from the past, especially a young Jean Grey who has been dead for a long time in the books at this point, is not without ramifications. So this leads to a very exciting read. Even though I will admit to you, this is a drama-heavy book. You're not really going to be seeing a lot of superheroics or fights, although there are a fair share, but a lot of this is character-centric. So if that's what you're about, like me, it's a good book. It's a really fun time, especially if you like Jean Grey. Jean Grey is frankly what this book was written for, it feels like, because this is a lot to do with her, and her learning all this stuff that's happened after her death, which is this Jean's future, is a big deal. Not to mention, Jean gets some of my favorite splash pages in this book. My personal favorite being this panel of Jean seeing multiple incarnations of herself through time, and it's really a beautiful panel. As someone who was very new going into X-Men, this was a really good book for that. Even though it was a little confusing to me, I learned very quickly who everyone was and kind of what the X-Men were about. And it was a good way for me to get introduced to the characters, especially when my previous experience was minimal. But it also doesn't alienate a current audience who knows what's going on. I think this is one of the biggest strengths of this book is that the younger X-Men generations, or characters who came in a little later, are now put in the leadership roles. It's where we see the young original quintet having to struggle and catch up with things. It's kind of a fun reversal of roles without being super like, oh, this is a reversal of roles, if you kind of get what I'm putting down. This kind of event also creates an interesting catalyst for these characters, challenging the boundaries of their character with basically the stress of it all. How they respond to these events is really interesting because we're seeing a younger perspective on their current selves or current situations. So it's a lot of fun. Couple this with a really, really clean, bright artwork, and it's just all around a great title to read. I highly recommend it for anyone even remotely interested in X-Men. On that note, I will see you guys in the next part where we talk about this book's sister series, Uncanny X-Men. Until then though, what did you guys think? What X-Men generation did you grow up with? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time, here on Out of Ink.